Hello. Wanted to come and share my views. Um, I try not to stay too much into the politics because are very complicated, and I don't want to be responsible. Um, Communicating something I'm really not an expert in, and also I do believe that the politics of a country can belong to the natives of that country, or at least. Uh, mostly natives, really. um, but do I do want to share my views on a lot of these things. Well, the way I see this current situation in the United States, well, if I could picture it with an image, it would be the image of some sort of a creature with several faces or heads, and this creature is really a one global system. And one of the faces is socialism. Socialism started taking over the Americas during the 1960s. It had worked for a few decades before took over Cuba completely. Okay, the USSR was the main asset pouring USSR resources that belong to those people in the USSR, that they had worked for those, they had enslaved themselves to the SSR, and the SSR used them to reach other countries like Cuba. And when they reach these countries, they don't do it randomly, they do it strategically, I believe, because they're going to be using those resources and their influence of those countries, political influence, monetary, cultural influence, and influence in the sciences. Mm. So when they took Cuba, Cuba was a main product had a production of food. They started sending food to USSR. And also it was a cultural center, okay, a big salsa center. The queen of salsa was from Cuba, okay, and she ended up being a refugee, but it was a big cultural center. And they took um, Nicaragua. Nicaragua was the mines, the gold, and the cultural influence, political influence, influence in literature, poetry, all the Rubén Darío, and the modernist poetry. Okay. And then they took over Venezuela. Or they were after oil, Venezuelan oil, and the Miss Universe, um, aesthetics, culture influence. And they took Brazil, the coffee industry. Brazil was like a big Hollywood for Latin America. Okay, they took Colombia, and they started using the narco industry to destabilize these countries. Okay, Colombia had the coffee industry and the narco industry, the cartels. And they took over for a while in Ecuador, and they still have a big food there. That was a big cultural influence. Okay, Ecuador. They took Mexico. They're still in the process of totally submitting Mexico, and they have an industry for metals and oil, and it's a Hollywood. It's like a Hollywood center for media production, TV, the movies, and whatnot. Now they're trying really hard to get Canada and the United States. Okay, the same thing. Their final goal is the one global system, taking those resources that those people, natives of those countries, worked for their entire lives, and to take those resources and use them to reach other countries, to reach more countries. Why? Probably control, world control. Mm. Now, this is one face of this creature, as I picture it. Another face is the the radical Islamism. And I'm not against Muslims. I know there's a lot of people that are Muslim that are sincere and there being no harm, okay? But this is I'm talking about radical Islamism, okay? And their goal is a one world caliphate. And there's the faces of this radical Islamism is first the victim mentality, see themselves as victims. They go to a country, but they don't assimilate, and then they completely take over, and then they just um, submit that country completely. Okay, and they still practice radical Islamism, still practice slavery to this day. And another phase is a money system. There's money, international one world money system. I think the international forum is part of it. I think the a lot of the health science is with it, and I think the war machine is with it, and its mission is to totally devastate countries for control, for global control. They leave these countries in total destruction. They leave nothing, and a complete dependence on the international money system. So I'm saying all these things because the, I'm pleading. I'm not perfect, and I'm not the best example or a good example for religion, but I'm pleading people to try to this the same way this creature, the faces of this creature work together for a total global takeover, even though they're going to eat each other, try to eat each other afterwards. How much more the people that has worked really hard in these countries should unite in prayer. Unite in prayer and ask God, surrender the country to God, and that no other kingdom takes over the country other than the kingdom of God. I wish my country had done that, but I didn't, you know. So let's renounce the excessive raging and deviation. One thing I've learned is that not everybody that thinks different than me is my enemy, and not everybody that thinks like me is my friend. So unite brother with brother. Okay? Take care, you all.